Hey, greetings everybody. Gleekon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. We're starting the third one in the book here. This is called Draenor and the Evergrowth, so we are officially moving on to the continent that the orcs come from, and moving away from just recapping the creation of the universe. Stay a while and listen, and we'll find out what was going on in their prehistory. Before the Burning Legion launched its crusade, a small world took shape in a distant corner of the Great Dark. This world would be known by many names in the coming ages. The mighty ogres would call it Dogar, meaning the known earth in their brutish tongue. An intelligent avian race known as the Arakoa would later name it Rakshar, the Sunstone. Little note for my D&D players out there. I've always thought it was not a coincidence that they named their bird race the Arakoa, or the Arakoa, and the Arakakra are the bird race that's always been part of Dungeons and Dragons since I was a kid. So, coincidence? I think not. Definitely some influence. In modern times, the most common name for this world would be Draenor. I also always pronounced it Draenor until I heard some in-game videos or something, and I always pronounced him the Draene, and it's only in the past year probably that I've been pronouncing it Draenor and Draenei and stuff like that. I always pronounced it wrong. Draenor did not contain a slumbering world soul, but it was remarkable in other ways. Nearly all worlds in existence were home to elemental spirits of fire, air, earth, and water. Those are the personification of, the order and the chaos. Sometimes these primordial beings were highly destructive. They took on physical forms and waged war against each other, keeping their respective worlds in a state of constant upheaval, which was the state of Kalimdor before the Titans arrived. Such was not the case on Draenor. An abundance of the fifth element, the spirit of life, had saturated the world. Also, I loved that movie when I was a kid. This force had a natural calming effect on the elemental spirits. It tempered their violent nature, and it even prevented them from taking on physical forms. It's also probably why shamanism is so important to the orcs, and why you see in the Cradle of the Elements and stuff like that, there's just some good elementals out there, and that's not what we've seen so far with the history of Kalimdor. The fifth element had another far more extraordinary effect on Draenor. It accelerated the growth of flora and fauna. It made the world into a cradle of vibrant, untamed life. So too much of this life force made Draenor just jungle planet. Creatures of every shape and size roamed the young world, vying for dominance. The strong preyed on the weak, the cunning preyed on the strong. Savagery became critical to survival. Okay. Draenor's greatest predators did not hunt with fang or claw. They hunted with root and thorn. A carnivorous invasive strain of plant had sprouted on Draenor. These life forms were known as spore mounds. Their tendril-like vines slithered over the earth and strangled every primitive beast that they could reach. As they grew, the spore mounds consumed more and more and more. Their hunger and need to expand knew no end. They blossomed into living mountains of tangled brambles and noxious pods. Makes you think of the what's it called? In the Warlords of Draenor, there's the evergreen or evergrowth, those kind of regions, I guess, would be remnants of this. Wherever the spore mound's tendrils crept over the earth, lush forests and swampy mires took root. Before long, a labyrinth of deep wild stretched to the far corners of the world. Not even Draenor's elemental energies were safe from the spore mounds. Oh, there's the Evergrowth right there in the title. Their roots wormed deep underground in search of water. As they did, the invading plant life tapped into the fifth element that suffused Draenor's stones and soil. Consuming this primordial energy ignited a crude communal sentience within the spore mounds and the surrounding wilds. This newfound intelligence allowed Draenor's plants to act as a single massive organism. The spore mounds and all other vegetation became known collectively as the Evergrowth. If any major threat arose, the Evergrowth could react in unison, yet such threats were non-existent. The Evergrowth dominated everything in sight, and nothing could hold it at bay. That's super cool. I knew nothing about any of that, so that is this is all news to me. I think this is a really cool concept, actually. I don't know. It's nothing. I've not read anything quite like this, but I think it's cool because it plays on the idea of a hive mind, and you've had that in some other things, mostly that goes in the direction of like AI, Matrix type things where everything's tapped in. But you get that cool concept of what if there was a world that was run by one creature with one hive of creature that had a hive mind. So that's a cool concept. And then what if there was a planet, and I'm sure mathematically there is, that the dominant species was plants? What if plants overcame everything else? They won in the race for all of the resources, and there was never enough for anything other than plants to thrive and survive. What would that look like? And it could go a lot of different ways, but this is a cool little fantasy, sci-fi almost type of take on the origin of Draenor. And there is a sci-fi element to Draenor. Okay, so cool. So what the Evergrowth is, it's the hive mind that controls ancient primordial Draenor. Neat. All right, guys, thank you for joining me on this journey, and I'll check you on the next episode of Lore on Warcraft. This one in the pipes, 5x5.